The movie begins with Gabriel, who's out hunting in the woods with his dog. But suddenly, the dog runs off into the forest. As Gabriel follows him, he finds the animal standing completely still beside a strange object lying on the ground. Curious, Gabriel picks up the mysterious item and slips it into his pocket. But the moment he does, the dog becomes possessed by an evil force and viciously attacks him. Left with no choice, Gabriel is forced to kill his own dog. What he doesn't realize is that this curse works in a horrifying way. Whenever someone kills the demon's current host, the evil entity immediately transfers into the person who delivered the final blow. That's why, when Gabriel returns home, his eyes have turned completely black, and he begins acting in a terrifyingly violent manner. He brutally attacks his own family, then storms into a neighbor's house and continues the massacre. Eventually, a man manages to shoot Gabriel dead. But the instant he lands the killing blow, the same demonic entity possesses him as well. Under its control, he ends up murdering his own daughter. And just like that, a chain of horrifying attacks begins spreading throughout the entire area. That's when Budley enters the story, an experienced demon hunter who is sitting in a bar at the time. After spending the night with a woman, he senses that the same evil force has returned once again. Determined to destroy it forever, he immediately decides to head toward the village. On the other side of the story, Federal Agent Evelyn Pierce arrives at the police station to investigate these mysterious deaths. At first, she suspects the case could be linked to terrorism, but Commander Dohan quickly dismisses that theory. Evelyn asks whether all the deaths are connected, and Dohan admits that after a deeper investigation, it's clear every incident is somehow tied together. Suddenly, Budley barges into the police station, claiming he knows the full truth. Neither Dohan nor Evelyn recognizes him, and they immediately begin questioning him while the other officers move in to throw him out. But Budley warns them that the entire town is in danger. Because of this, they reluctantly give him a chance to explain himself. Budley tells them they probably won't believe what he's about to say, but Evelyn still asks who he really is and what he knows about the murders. He introduces himself as a demon hunter and reveals that a deadly supernatural entity is behind everything. He explains that once a person becomes possessed by this force, their soul is completely destroyed and the demon takes full control of their body. But even after hearing all this, Dohan and Evelyn think he's joking. So they order the officers to drag him out of the station. Even while being forced outside, Budley keeps warning them that the whole town is in grave danger, but nobody listens to him. Instead, Evelyn assumes he's insane and orders the police to keep him under strict watch. However, before leaving, Budley gives Evelyn one final warning. Ask about the victim's eyes. After that, Evelyn teams up with Commander Dohan to closely analyze the crime scene, carefully studying every photograph to figure out what really happened. But she becomes completely confused when she discovers that after killing his daughter, Mr. Ben had also shot his own son. None of it makes any sense to her. That's why she decides she needs to speak with the only living witness in the case, Mrs. Mackle. When Evelyn arrives at the hospital to question her, Mrs. Mackle appears completely shattered by the trauma of losing her family. She explains that Benjamin and the children used to fight constantly and were often aggressive toward each other. She also regrets not spending enough time with them and admits that instead of trying to understand them, she would usually just send them back to their rooms. It becomes clear that she never realized how serious the situation truly was. In her statement, she reveals that her husband Daniel was a strong man who had served in the Navy and had even fought in Afghanistan. During the attack, Daniel told his wife to hide inside a closet while he confronted the intruder himself. He managed to shoot the attacker, but then, in a terrifying and mysterious way, he suddenly lost control and ended up shooting his own son. As she tells all of this to Agent Evelyn Pierce, she repeatedly mentions the attacker's eyes. Completely black, with an inhuman stare that didn't look human at all. That detail immediately grabs Evelyn's attention because it matches the exact sign Jeremiah had warned her about earlier. Afterward, Evelyn calls Commander Dohan's office to dig deeper into Woodley's background. She learns that he has a long criminal record filled with assault charges and resisting arrest. But even after hearing that, she still doesn't see him as the direct killer because he knows far too many disturbing details about the murders. Details no ordinary person could possibly know. Determined to uncover the truth, Evelyn decides to question him face to face. She returns to the station, where Woodley says he's willing to explain everything, but first he complains that he's starving. Eventually, the three of them decide to head to a restaurant together. Once they arrive, Evelyn refuses to trust him and keeps challenging everything he says. But Woodley suddenly turns serious and warns them that if they ignore his words, the entire city could fall into terrible danger. He explains that this evil force doesn't just possess people. Its true purpose is to spread chaos, destruction, and death everywhere it goes. Then he reveals something even more horrifying. Every demon has its own unique nature and behavior. Some entities stay inside a body for only a few seconds, while others can control their host for an entire lifetime. Then he reveals that the force they are dealing with follows a terrifying and deadly pattern. The moment a host is killed, the entity instantly transfers into the person who delivered the final blow. And that's how the cycle of possession and murder keeps spreading endlessly, leaving behind nothing but death and chaos. He also makes it clear that these creatures exist for only one purpose: to spread destruction and unbearable suffering. Woodley then explains that he has spent his entire life hunting this entity. Around 10 years ago, he and his father traveled to a town where almost everyone had been killed in the exact same way. When they finally managed to trap the demon, they revealed the horrifying truth to the surviving townspeople. And because everyone had witnessed the nightmare with their own eyes, they believed them instantly. Hearing this makes Evelyn even more serious, and she asks the most important question: how can this thing be destroyed? Woodley explains that many years ago, his father sacrificed himself by poisoning his own body. As he died, he killed the host carrying the demon, and since there was no other body nearby for the entity to escape into, it became trapped inside a sealed box. But when Evelyn asks how it escaped again, Woodley reveals that he kept it imprisoned for years. Even then, the entity continued affecting everything around it. Later, while he was transporting it by plane to a secure location, the engine suddenly caught fire. He was forced to save himself, and the entity spread across the area where the crash happened. Hearing this, Commander Dahan says he remembers the incident very well because he personally investigated the case. He then asks, if all of this is true, what are they supposed to do next? Woodley explains his plan. First, they must find the person responsible for the recent murders, and then gather the entire town together to confront the threat once and for all. However, Avon disagrees with the idea. She warns that spreading such a terrifying story in a small traditional town would only create panic and chaos instead of cooperation. But Woodley refuses to back down. Evelyn firmly stops him and says she will never allow that to happen. Then the commander asks how he plans to find the last killer, and what he intends to do once he meets them. In a calm and chilling voice, Woodley replies, he only wants to sit down and talk to them. Hearing this, Avon says she's coming with him and makes it crystal clear that everything will be done her way. Otherwise, she'll send him straight back to prison. In the end, Woodley reluctantly agrees. At the same time, Elin warns him that if he makes even one wrong move, she won't hesitate to shoot him. After that, the commander returns his weapons, and the two head toward the house of the man connected to the recent events. The moment Woodley spots a man there, he reacts instantly and traps him with his pressurized net gun. But only moments later, he realizes the man isn't possessed by any demon, he's just heavily drunk. Realizing his mistake, Woodley quickly admits it and releases him. Without wasting any time, he begins questioning him, hoping to uncover a clue about the real host. During the interrogation, the terrified man nervously reveals that 3 days earlier, he had actually shot the killer himself. He thought it was all over. But then a man named Glot showed up and completely finished him off. The sight of all that blood terrified him so badly that he ran away. After hearing this, Woodley and Evelyn let him go and continue on their way. But along the road, their car suddenly overheats, forcing them to stop. Frustrated, Avon says she never should have trusted him in the first place. That's when Woodley senses something strange. He immediately tells her to stay quiet because it feels like someone is watching them from between the trees. Evelyn can't see anything at all, But Woodley can feel the danger closing in. He orders her to stay inside the car while he carefully moves forward with his weapon to investigate. The moment he leaves her alone, the atmosphere grows heavier and more terrifying. Eerie sounds begin echoing through the entire area, making it clear that the dark presence is very close. Realizing this, Avon nervously looks around. Then suddenly, the demonic creature attacks. Avon barely manages to dodge and stumbles back, but the entity quickly climbs onto the roof of the car, making the whole situation even more horrifying. Fear and panic take over, and Evelyn finally decides to step out of the car and face it. But the second she moves forward, the creature strikes, violently throwing her to the ground. Then it starts behaving in a disturbingly strange way, almost as if it's deliberately provoking Evelyn to kill it. It even creates terrifying hallucinations right in front of her eyes. Just then, at the perfect moment, Woodley arrives and draws the creature's attention toward himself. The entity immediately charges at him, but Woodley fires a shot straight into its face. The impact forces it back, and it disappears into the darkness. Afterward, Woodley tells Avon that he didn't use real bullets. He used rubber rounds instead. As Evelyn tries to say something, he tells her to stay quiet and explains that the town meeting has already been scheduled for the next day. After this terrifying encounter, the two take shelter at a local inn, where the owner informs them that only one room is available, forcing them to stay together. There, Woodley treats his own wounds while Evelyn struggles to recover from the shock of the horrifying incident. At the same time, she thanks him for saving her life. But in a calm voice, Woodley admits that he thought she was already dead. He also reveals that he has never seen that entity behave this way before. Then Woodley makes a shocking revelation. The entity doesn't just want to kill Evelyn. Because of her unique soul, it wants to use her as its permanent host. Hearing this terrifies Evelyn, and she explains that when she looked into the creature's eyes, she didn't just see darkness. She saw something far more horrifying, a vision so terrifying that it shook her to the core. The moment he hears this, Woodley says the demon specifically chose her because it's searching for a soul with extraordinary power, one strong enough to give it a permanent body so it can spread even greater destruction than before. Later, while Evelyn helps bandage his wounds, she asks how long he's been doing this. Woodley replies that as far back as he can remember, this has always been his life. As the conversation continues, the tension between them starts to grow, and for a brief moment, they almost kiss. But both of them quickly pull themselves together and refocus on their mission. After that, Evelyn asks him to turn around so she can change her clothes, a small moment that strengthens the trust growing between them. She then asks Woodley to stay in the room, but he refuses and walks outside. Once outside, he calls his partner Nelson and asks him to dig up information about Evelyn's family. Later, when he returns, he notices she still can't sleep. Evelyn reveals that she spent her childhood on that very farm. Hearing this, Woodley asks why the place has been abandoned. Evelyn explains that the villagers believe the farm is cursed. She then recalls a traumatic childhood memory. One day, she fell into a water pool and remained underwater for so long that everyone declared her dead. But sometime later, she suddenly came back to life. The moment Woodley hears this, he becomes convinced that this is the reason the entity is obsessed with her. He says that perhaps Evelyn is connected to some divine bloodline. Woodley then warns her that if the entity succeeds in devouring her soul, it will use her body as a permanent vessel and summon countless evil spirits, turning the entire town into hell. Evelyn is left completely stunned because she has never believed herself to be connected to any divine power. The next day, a meeting is held at City Hall to warn the townspeople about the growing danger. Commander Uhan and Woodley try to explain the horrifying truth to everyone, but the people constantly interrupt them, driven by fear and suspicion. Still, Woodley tries to calm everyone down so they can stay safe. But the situation quickly spirals out of control, and suddenly the demon appears and starts attacking people. Within seconds, the entire hall turns into complete chaos. People begin running for their lives while Woodley desperately tries to catch the creature. But in the panic, terrified civilians start firing guns everywhere, allowing the entity to jump from one body to another. Woodley chases after it, But the demon escapes once again by possessing a new host. When Woodley returns inside, he asks for the sheriff's car keys, but nobody can find them. Furious, he warns everyone that from this point on, he will hunt the demon alone. Evelyn offers to go with him, but Woodley refuses, saying that everyone else has only made things worse so far. Meanwhile, the demonic entity wanders through the forest and eventually reaches a cabin where two young girls are staying. It watches them silently through the window. Suddenly, the older sister notices the terrifying presence and quickly pushes her younger sister behind her. She grabs a weapon, points it at the creature, and warns it to stay back. But the entity slowly keeps moving toward them until it suddenly grabs the older sister by the throat, causing her to panic and fire the gun. At the same time, after the brutal attack at City Hall and the deaths of his men, Commander Dohan completely breaks down and starts thinking about abandoning everything out of fear. But Eileen confronts him, calling him a coward and telling him that running away will solve nothing. Even so, Dohan gives in to his fear and abandons the mission. Later, Woodley notices Father Erickson acting suspiciously inside the church and confronts him. But the priest angrily accuses Eileen of carrying the devil's blood and tries to turn the townspeople against her. Just then, a terrified man named Emmett rushes in, claiming that his daughter's eyes have turned black and she has become violently aggressive. Hearing this, Woodley immediately realizes that the demon has found a new host. They decide to help him, and Woodley explains that the only way to save the girl is to kill the host. But to stop the demon from jumping into another body, he comes up with a deadly plan. Emmett will drink poison, then go into the basement and kill the possessed host, and shortly afterward, he himself will die too, trapping the demon forever. But before they can carry out the plan, Officer Deacon arrives with the remaining agents. Without knowing the truth, they assume it's just a normal crime scene. Evelyn tries to explain the situation, but the agents force Woodley aside and take control of the operation themselves. As a result, the entire plan falls apart, and the demon is unleashed once again, causing even more destruction. After this, Eileen and Woodley escape from the area with Officer Deacon. On the way, Woodley asks Deacon what really happened inside the house. Deacon reveals that his men shot the girl, and during the return fire, he was shot as well. The moment Woodley hears this, he realizes they are already too late, and he tells Eileen to put handcuffs on Deacon. But suddenly, the demon takes control of Deacon's body and violently throws Woodley across the room. The entity then starts moving toward Evelyn, and just as it is about to possess her, Woodley quickly fires his gun and somehow manages to stop the demon for a moment. Eileen then asks what they're going to do now. That's when Woodley makes the painful decision to become the next sacrifice himself, so the demon can finally be imprisoned forever. But Eileen desperately tries to find another way. Even so, Woodley tells her that the rules of the curse never change, and someone must die to stop the demon. He then kisses her and gives her the strength to continue the mission. However, at that very moment, Father Erickson arrives with his men and everything spirals completely out of control. The demon breaks free once again, and a horrifying massacre begins. During the chaos, the priest shoots the entity, but he ends up getting possessed himself. Then Evelyn fires at the demon, but she also becomes possessed. Before completely losing control, she pulls the pin from a grenade, causing a massive explosion that destroys the host once again. Taking advantage of that moment, Woodley finally succeeds in trapping the demon one last time. In the end, the movie closes with a terrifying message. Evil can never truly be destroyed, because it always finds a way to return. After that, Woodley throws the demon deep into the ocean's darkness. With this, the story ends here. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.